Hello and welcome to the Aegex Webinar. Today we are going to be hearing from Lance Fountain, Principal Advisor of Business Transformation at OSIsoft. He will be speaking today about an important topic that all of our customers are grappling with, digital transformation. Since this is such an important topic, it may go over a little bit in terms of time for this webinar. If you need to drop off at 10:30, we understand, but we will be recording the entire webinar, and so if you miss any questions at the end, we will be sure to send them to you with the recording. I'd like to draw your attention quickly to the control panel. On your screen, you'll see a section called Questions. Here you can type in your question to the speaker and send it, and at the end of the presentation, we will address some of these questions. We will read your question out loud to Lance, and he will be able to verbally answer. If we don't get to your question during the recording, we'll definitely email you afterwards with Lance's answers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Thomas Michelet, the CEO of Aegex Technologies, to give a brief introduction. Tom?
Thanks, Lee. I appreciate everybody joining today as the first webinar of this year's series. Discussing digital transformation is at the forefront of really every customer that we're dealing with. How those companies start to combine their IT and OT operations. Everybody hears about IoT, to Industry 4.0, and really what are those steps to get there in that world of, quote, connecting everything. And I think for this webinar with OSI, there's really nobody better, in our opinion, to help coach and guide companies through that. Lance's group at OSI, as everyone knows, OSI is pervasive throughout our markets. Has been capturing data in those operations for years. And so they really sit at a very unique spot in taking those existing systems and really now starting to merge them into a great, effective solution. How technologies all come together, how it all happens, it's a very complex challenge for a big organization. So Lance's group, their ability to step in and help coach organizations, guide them through that process, and bring different skills to the table and experiences to the table. I really encourage everyone to follow along today. We will probably end up having a second webinar on this because there's so much great information here. And so kind of with that, and walking through this big process, Lance, hand it over to you. Appreciate it, and look forward to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks very much. So good day, everybody. As Tom said, my name is Lance Fountain. I'll just do a brief introduction for everyone. So my role is the group lead for business transformation services at OSIsoft. What that essentially means is I work with our largest global enterprise customers, helping them really align around a vision for digital transformation and define a strategy that's appropriate for them to get on their journey to success. So I've been doing this for about 4.5 years. And in my prior life, I spent 21 years with Alcoa, the aluminum company. And in my last role there, I had accountability for the design, development, and deployment of our global smart manufacturing program across our 17 smelters. So I don't only come at this as a technologist, but I actually was a customer who had accountability to bring this strategy to life within a very large industry. So I think I can offer both perspectives in this discussion today. So the agenda, what we'll kind of go through is, what does it mean? What does digital transformation mean? So we'll take a quick look at the vision, and then we'll probably spend the majority of our time on understanding the customer journey. You know, what is the vision about? How do you build an effective strategy, and how do you execute for success? And finally, I'll do a quick conclusion of key takeaways, and then hopefully leave a little bit of time for Q&A. And I'll try to keep this to the 30-minute window. If we go over a few minutes, my apologies in advance, but I think we'll be pretty close. Okay, so what is digital transformation? So as we started down this journey at Alcoa, and it's the same discussion I have with customers at OSIsoft, what does it mean? And I kind of start with the value statement. And there are literally thousands of references you can go and find throughout the internet, in publications. But I highlight these three. And the first one you might recognize is a bit old. But the reason I put the U.S. Smart Manufacturing Leadership Coalition reference in here is it wasn't a thought leader. It was a consortium of companies that came together, leading companies, and they all were asked, what does data mean to them? What does smart manufacturing mean to them? And they came up with these numbers, and you can see them on the screen. 20% increase in operating efficiency, 25% improvement in energy efficiency, 40% reduction in cycle time, tracking and traceability through the supply chain. These are concepts they were talking about in 2011. The journey continued, and in 2014 there was a lot of spin on Industry 4.0 and PwC. They were giving similar numbers: 18% increase in efficiency within 5 years, new digital business models, sustainable corporate success. And in 2015, McKinsey did one on the next spin, which is called IoT, and they put $1 to it. They were estimating the economic impact in factories globally was somewhere between 1.2 and 3.7 trillion US dollars by 2025. So the reason I highlight this, it's not just one or two companies saying this is tremendously valuable. You see this around every corner today. Somebody talking about data and how much data is worth in manufacturing and industry operations. And I don't get as concerned about what label we give it, but the truth is everyone believes this will change the way we operate. And if you think about how we live personally today with our smartphones, as an example, why isn't that, more prevalent in our operations? Why are we still using pencils and paper and sneakernet and the likes? So, digital is going to change the world. It already is, but we think it'll be a significant step in the coming years. Okay, and it's real. So this is an OSIsoft slide. It references some of our customers who have publicly spoken on our behalf. And this is not just a pipe dream of what people might be able to do. These are real examples of real savings. We generally find that our customers are driving value in one of these 6 business impact areas: process productivity, asset health, energy quality, or safety and regulation. So we have about 1,600 use case examples on our website, and these are just a handful that we picked as examples to share today. But it's really interesting to see how those use cases have evolved in the last 10 years. OSIsoft has been around since about 1980, but the last 10 years has really represented a boom in our business. Okay, so as we continue to think about that value in data, it's really important to ask how data is used to achieve results. And the truth is, when you go and you talk about digital transformation, you have to spin the story in so many different ways. And the reason we have to do that is because it's all about what's in it for me. Your audience can vary. You can talk to operators and craftsmen, supervisors on the shop floor. They care about here and now. How do I get immediate results? How do I achieve daily targets? How do I maintain schedule and plan? So they've got a different what's in it for me. And that may also vary by department or function. Okay? When we escalate that up to process engineers or superintendents or centers of excellence, they care about different things like process stability, avoiding excursions, improving productivity, improving quality. They still use all the same data, but they're looking at that data differently. And they're going to want different things out of their digital transformation. And finally, you can take that all the way up to location managers, business leadership, regional or global ops. And they want to understand and grade performance, adjust expectation, establish plans, calculate forecasts. They want to integrate between operations and the business. So all different uses of data, all the same foundation of data and information, but it's just used differently. So we got to start thinking about what's in it for me. Okay? And when I say me there, I'm referencing the customer. So just a little plug here. So if you think about getting value out of data, how do we do that? And I put this together very quickly so that we understand how data flows. It should seem pretty simple and basic, but we start with different sources of data, and this is exploding. You can buy sensors now that detect how much moisture is in your grass. We are now sources of information: heart rate, steps per day. I'm sure many of you have Fitbit type devices. So it starts with sources of data. Once we have identified sources, how do we get to those sources of data? How do we network to them? Might seem simple, but wired, Wi-Fi, cellular, proprietary networks, you got to be able to get at the data. Even SneakerNet is a legitimate source of obtaining data. Okay. Then we talk about the idea of a data infrastructure. This is kind of OSIsoft's heart and soul. It's not just about collecting data and historizing data, but it's also thinking about things like, how do I standardize it? How do I normalize it across an enterprise? How do I handle calculations, roll-up, aggregation? So the whole idea that data is used many different ways, how do I put it in context so that people know what they're looking at? This becomes more and more important as our volume of data grows. Okay, so a really important piece. Then there's the things we do with the data: tools, applications, tablets. How do we visualize it? What applications do we use or prefer? How do we do analytics? How do we do reporting? Okay, that's the things we do on top of the data. And then finally, and this is most importantly to me, how do I get people and process engaged? This is not just about technology. It's about your subject matter experts, your centers of excellence, your change agents, your innovators. That's the most key step in success. And I want to also reference here, you can see where OSIsoft and Aegex play together in this space. And I'll kind of cover this a bit more in the next slide, but Aegex really works with intrinsically safe sensors. They design, develop those sensors for IoT, and they also are doing a lot in the consumption of data with the intrinsically safe tablets. Okay, so I'll just cover this slide quickly that introduces Aegex 10 intrinsically safe tablet, as well as their IoT sensors. And if anybody wonders how OSIsoft and Aegex fit together, there is a use case scenario that you can reference in this document. This is in the handout and available for everyone to reference. Okay, so a little bit of background. Now, what does it mean to go on this journey? So it's great that everybody says, hey, yeah, this is important, I want to do it. But how do you really get started? And this is where we see so many of our enterprise customers struggle. So I want to spend a little time on this slide. So, you've heard me talk about the spin on the left. Every year there's a new spin of what data means. 5 years ago, it was all about big data. 3 years ago, it was all about operational intelligence or Industry 4.0, especially in Europe. 2 years ago, it started to become about IoT and IIoT. And then we've sprinkled in there, we've had things like smart manufacturing, advanced analytics, and I'm sure next year there'll be another spin. But it's all about the vision of leveraging data as an asset to drive results to the business impact. And, when you talk about these concepts, yes, for sure, there's a technology aspect to the concept, but there's also a people and process aspect, a business and operations aspect. If anybody thinks you can hand this vision over to the technology department and it'll just go smoothly and you'll be highly successful, I would say that individual is probably wrong. It's about engaging the entire organization in a change process to drive a different way of operating. Okay, so the vision is very key, and it's really, really important that all parties within an enterprise, the executives, the mid-level managers, and the shop floor, they're aligned on that vision and where they want to go. And said differently, what that means is there's got to be something in it for everybody. Okay, this can't just be about the executives or the people sitting at headquarters. It's got to be every bit as much about the shop floor. So OSIsoft offers a service called Business Discovery. We will go in and help our customers define that vision, not only define it, but start to align everybody around a common understanding. And that's the first place you have to start. Okay? What we typically see happen, and I'll cover this a bit in a latter slide, is people have a tendency when they do understand the vision to want to jump into a project. And there are certainly dangers in jumping into a project on a case-by-case basis. And let me just talk through this briefly, and I'll cover a bit more later. You know, during each project, you may reevaluate technology, reevaluate solutions. And as you do that, and as you make different decisions, you may introduce new databases, new data sources, new data storage, new applications. So if you haven't really established a well-thought-out strategy, you create these silos. And what you end up doing is trying to integrate those silos in the future. So, you know, executing on a project-by-project basis and circumventing a true comprehensive strategy, we think is very problematic. Okay? So we do offer a service to help our customers develop a strategy that's appropriate to them, and we call that service our strategic program development service. So it's something we help our customers define based on where they are today and where they want to go. Okay? And when we execute successfully, it's all about these results. So we don't want to lose sight of that. But you have to have vision, strategy, and execution to really successfully navigate this journey. Okay? A bit more on the strategy, because I think it's very important. Just like the vision, there's a technology component and a business and operations component. And I want to quickly walk through this slide. People have a tendency to spend a lot of time talking about the technology. And I'll be the first person to admit that technology is very important. But the technology only serves as a foundation. If we aren't leveraging that technology to drive changes in how we operate, we're probably not going to be as successful as we should be. So I want to walk through each of these pillars and talk about what we see our customers doing across the globe to really drive that change. So I'll start on the left. You'll see here data-driven operational excellence in lean manufacturing. So without a doubt, if you've ever worked in OpEx or lean manufacturing, it's all based on data. But some people are calling this focus OpEx 2.0 or lean manufacturing 2.0 because the volume of data has grown. Data is more prevalent now than it's ever been in history. And how do we start to better utilize that data to drive better results? So the linkage here has to be very strong. So again, recognizing this is a key change agent. So if you have continuous improvement departments or OpEx departments, get them involved in digital transformation. They need to be a key part of it. Next pillar talks about shop floor innovation and self-service. So the spin I put here is, you know, whose job is safety? If you ask any company, any operating company in the world that question, industrial or manufacturing, they're going to tell you it's everybody's job. Well, my question is, whose job is innovation? And the answer is the same. It's really everybody's. So the days of having tech centers dedicated to innovation, you know, you're still going to have breakthrough technology, research and development, but more and more, these large enterprise companies are trying to get everybody involved in innovation and self-service, get everybody in the shop floor data-driven. Again, this is where Aegex Tablet and OSIsoft can be very powerful. Take data with you to the shop floor. Have it at your fingertips, okay? Get people innovating. So another key driver of change from a business and operations standpoint. Third pillar is one of my favorites, leverage of standard or best practice operating processes. You know, this sometimes gets framed as a center of excellence or a remote operations center. But the key here is you really got to understand that so many enterprises are trying to cut and paste their successes. So digital transformation should help enable them to do that. Standardize processes, recognize those best practices, innovate around them, okay? So we see a lot of our companies focused in that area as well. enterprise intelligence and visibility. How do we establish standard KPIs? You know, I have a lot of customers that will reach out to me and say, hey, we've already got standard KPIs. But when you dig a little deeper, they're not calculated the same. I can share that story from my Alcoa experience. We had 17 plants, and we had our most critical KPI to measure productivity. We were actually measuring it 12 different ways. Okay? We were making decisions on that metric, and we weren't measuring it the same. And I don't think we were a unique case scenario. I think many enterprises find themselves in that situation. So standardized KPIs for performance, providing visibility to the entire organization, and driving related continuous improvement. Fifth pillar, advanced analytics and machine learning. A lot of people might think of this as a technology pillar, but it really isn't. This isn't about the technology. This is about identifying those opportunities to pursue, okay? The advanced analytics piece usually involves subject matter experts, whereas the machine learning is, hey, can a computer see something that I don't see? Both approaches are practical, but again, they're not practical unless you have an area of focus. So identifying those areas of focus, those priorities, are very important. And the last one, and probably one of my favorites, is this idea of connected partners or connected supply chain / value chain, okay? We've heard about a supply chain for a lot of years, but think about how that's changing as more data becomes prominent. So the idea of being able to track raw material sources, search related to those raw materials, track all the process setup and performance through the each manufacturing step, and then being able to provide with a product the genealogy and the traceability front to back. This is not only external suppliers, it's also internal. So we work a lot with mining and metals as an example, understanding what blocks are targeted for mining and how you perform against that plan and how you produce against expected results, okay? And similarly, there's also a very important focus moving forward around critical equipment. So equipment that you may buy off a vendor that may not be your intellectual property. You may not be the expert on that equipment. I may be using it in my process, but if I am, how can I get my data back in front of that that equipment provider so that they can tell me whether or not I'm operating it as efficiently and effectively as I can? So it's another focus area that I think is growing very rapidly across global enterprises. So it may not capture every strategic business and operation initiative, but these are some of the key strategies we see being propagated across the globe. And they really are digital transformation strategies, whether people recognize them as digital transformation or not. So this is how you get your business behind you. Okay? I wanted to highlight just quickly, and I'm keeping an eye on time, so we're almost wrapped up here. What happens when you execute without a strategy? I just wanted to share this slide quickly, and hopefully everybody can relate to this. When we buy one-off solutions that have unique databases, data stores, and we don't think about how all the pieces come together, this is usually the result. This is what I call an MESS system, a mess, okay? And the truth is, we end up spending our people's time, our valuable people asset time, doing all this custom cobbling and integration. And what we want to do at OSIsoft with our partners is start to streamline this process, make it easier, okay? Give it more structure. And that really is what OSIsoft tries to do with their program approach. Okay? Just a couple more slides I'll very quickly walk through. What are the key contributors in building an effective strategy? I won't spend much time on capability and maturity, but know where you are today and where you want to go. Understand your gap. That gap is both capability, which is your technology capable, and maturity. Is your organization ready? Okay? And both of those pieces have to come together if you're going to take this step. So recognize where you are today and where you want to go. Recognize it's about change, okay? You can't keep doing things the same and expecting different results. I think that was defined as Einstein's theory of, I just drew a blank. Anyway, the point is, you can't do things the same and expect different results. It is about driving a fundamental change. Digital transformation represents that change. Okay, project to program thinking. We typically think about making an investment in technology as, hey, I'm going after some value. I'm going to make an investment and realize that value. Well, when you do program thinking, yes, you make the investment. Yes, you get the value. But how do I continue to drive additional value on top of my investment? This is that program thinking we want to get in front of our customers. How do I continuously improve with a digital transformation strategy? Project to program. This next slide, again, key to success. This talks about the linkage to OpEx and lean manufacturing. Okay, it's about people engagement and best practice, about KPIs, about continuous improvement. So go find your continuous improvement teams, departments. Go find your OpEx departments, your lean manufacturing departments. They should become your best partners in this pursuit. Okay? They've been doing it for years. Now data is more important than ever. Obviously, there's a technology element to this. What does your enterprise architecture look like? It's not just infrastructure, it's also applications, configurations, data. What does it look like? How are you going to apply that commonality across the entire enterprise? A lot behind this, but as a starting point, recognize that you've got to have a very clean, clear strategy to move forward. And then final slide, recognize also the importance of IT-OT convergence. All right? We used to have a wall, and we threw things back and forth over the wall, but we never truly integrated across that value chain. Now we need to. Okay? So we saw the evolution of IT into the ERP system. We're seeing a similar evolution in the OT world. And, a lot of regulation drove this change, SOX, Y2K on the IT side. We're also seeing regulation start to drive this change on the OT side. One of my favorite examples here is, if you're familiar with U.S. regulation, SOX mandates that we document every change in financial data. If we go over here in the OT side and talk about regulatory compliance for environmental compliance, it's not that stringent as of yet, but you can expect all that to change. Why would we have a spreadsheet that anybody can have access to report environmental data, but we tighten up those controls around financial data? So I think you're seeing a little bit of a lag, but you're going to see some of the same drivers drive cybersecurity and expected results in the OT space. And then finally, the ability to integrate across both the business and the operational worlds with this idea of enterprise intelligence. Okay, how do I start to take business constraints into consideration to setting my operational plans and my operational expectations? Okay, as commodity prices change, as an example, how am I going to change how I operate? Because that's critical to sustainability in the future. So with that said, I'll wrap up just very quickly with a conclusion and key takeaways. There's no doubt digital transformation offers tremendous value opportunity and competitive differentiation. If companies aren't getting on this train, they're going to be left behind. So how do you go pursue it? That represents a customer journey. It requires a comprehensive strategy that is aligned with existing company objectives, strategic initiatives, and operating practices. It's about more than a technology. And finally, ongoing success is driven incrementally through continuous improvement that effectively leverages people, process, and technology. So success requires all three pieces come together. So with that said, I'll wrap up the presentation portion and open it up to Q&A.
Thank you, Lance. We've had a couple questions roll in throughout the course of your presentation. We'll take about 3 or 4 right now, and if we don't get to you, we will be following up with you via email, so everyone's questions will be answered. Lance, the first question is, do you see IT or OT driving digital transformation?
The way I would answer that is yes. I see IT and OT driving digital transformation, and I think the days of having a wedge between those teams has to end. Whether you operate as a single team or you operate in a partnership, it's absolutely a requirement. So one side can't own it. They both have to own it, and they both have to come together with common objectives. And that is the first step. I see that challenge in many organizations. There just isn't a good working relationship, and quite frankly, that has to change. And both sides have something to learn from each other. I mean, I think IT has to learn about the world of real time, and real time means here and now. And OT has to learn about the world of life cycle management and governance and security, because those things are important. So again, I think they have to come together and become partners in this.
Okay, and as a follow-up to that question, to help customers along the path, do we push one or both organizations, referencing IT and OT?
So I think you have to push both organizations. The first thing is, again, I can't emphasize it enough, become partners. You're both going to have a key role to play. I think I think about my past experience, there's this idea that one side becomes more important than the other. Not true. Both sides are absolutely critical. And, it's the best success will come from working together. If you can't bridge that divide, you're going to struggle compared to other organizations. So I know there's history. I know it hasn't always been easy. I know there's been, reasons for burned bridges on both sides, but it's got to be buried. I think the best organizations are finding a way to overcome that hurdle. So I think that's one of the most critical first steps.
Thank you. All right, Tom, this question is for you. How are customers seeing tablets as a part of the digital transformation or IoT strategy?
Thanks. I think that's an interesting point. And I think in the experience we've had so far, and in fact, the use case that Lance pointed out a little bit earlier ago, that first kind of step of giving up a barcode scanner and a clipboard is the extent of their technology. A tablet and running OSI out in the plant. We actually saw with one oil services company, their early results showed a 70% efficiency gain in those workers. That entering information into OSI, into Pi live while they're walking around doing their rounds, capturing information, it really leverages the power of the software, and it saves that time of then having to go back later, type it in at some later hour or day where the information is getting stale. It's just doing double work, and then to all the compliance issues that Lance brought up. Now all of a sudden we're really validating and holding accountability of those field workers and the legitimacy of the data. So I think the tablet becomes really that first step in that transformation, changing how organizations operate, and then starting to layer in all the other amazing things that will be able to be done over the next couple of years. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Tom. All right, and Lance, one more question for you. Can people contact you directly on helping coach a customer through the digital transformation process?
Yeah, my email is on the last slide. So yeah, they should feel free to contact me directly. As I said, OSIsoft does offer services to support our customers' journey. But if people just have questions, I'm obviously happy to help and try to answer those questions. Like I said, I've had the unique experience of being on the customer side of this and on the technology provider side of this. At the end of the day, you know, I think sometimes there's this misconception out there that there's one answer. There isn't one answer. I think the best companies learn who their trusted advisors are, who their partners are, their tiger teams, and they build those trust relationships. And together they take on this journey. Okay, so we want to be our customer's trusted advisor. We want to be our partner's trusted advisor, and you know, we'll continue to pursue opportunities to drive those outcomes and those relationships.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lance. You're a great resource. We appreciate you doing the webinar with us today. And for those that are still on the line, that are partners of Aegex and end customers of Aegex, thank you for joining us. And remember, we're here for you too. Goodbye. Thank you for joining.